Hi guys, I hope you're all really well. I'm Lucy if you're new here, and if you're not new here then welcome back to my channel. So today's video I'm going to be talking to you about mental health, in particular postnatal anxiety. If you didn't know already, I'm part of the Channel Mum team, so mental health is one of Channel Mum's topics this month. And I think that mental health is a very wide topic. There's a lot of things that could be included in mental health. Obviously it's not just things like anxiety and depression. It can be things like bipolar and baby blues, which is different to depression. It can be baby related, pregnancy related. It could be if you're not a mum, dads can get postnatal depression. Mental health is just about obviously your mental well-being and the way that you feel and the way that your brain chooses to work. I hope I've explained that well enough. So when Channel Mum asked us guys if we wanted to make videos about mental health, I immediately thought, well no, because I'm fine now, so I don't really feel like I need to go back and revisit those feelings. But then I sort of took a look at myself and said, Lucy, you're being a bit of an idiot really, because you have a wealth of experience and you had an experience of anxiety that was very unexpected, and you could maybe help somebody that has felt the same way or is feeling the same way now. I'm sorry for having my leg up here. I feel like I want to make this like more of a relaxed sort of me just talking to you video. So I've stuck my camera on a tripod. I'm not really sure what's in the background, and I'm just sort of like leaning against the wall because I just wanted to make it more of a casual chat rather than like a real setup sit down video. Let me talk about my experience with anxiety and what anxiety is, in case that you are feeling how I felt and you're not really sure why you're feeling like that, because I very much didn't know that I was experiencing anxiety. I didn't really know that I was experiencing anxiety. I wasn't really sure what was wrong with me. I have never been an anxious person. I've never really been a nervous person or particularly shy. I obviously got all the normal nerves that people get, you know, exams, going to school, starting a new job, having an interview, like that normal level of anxiety I've always had, obviously. But I've never been an overly anxious person or a worrier or very neurotic or anything like that. I've always been really quite calm and sort of like just sort of went along with everything, and yeah, nothing's really ever fazed me until I had my baby. So throughout pregnancy I didn't feel anxiety at all. I had a normal pregnancy and nothing really was out of the ordinary. Obviously it was pregnancy, like I enjoyed some bits and I didn't enjoy some other bits, but I never really felt anxious. I was obviously quite scared to become a mum because I knew that my life was going to massively change, and I didn't really know how much it would change at that time, but I never thought that I would be somebody who would feel down after I had a baby. I just thought that I would be like any other mum and just sort of get on with it and just be tired, but I never thought that I would feel anxious. So I had my baby, and at this stage I didn't know anything was wrong with him. Not that there's anything wrong with him. If you're new here, I don't want to go into massive detail because I could go on forever, but my son is deaf and he was diagnosed at 7 weeks, but I actually started feeling anxiety before that. A few days after my son was born, I had the baby blues. As like most people do, after about, I think it was on day 3, day 4, I was quite tearful and hormonal, and I felt sad and I felt tired, and that sort of went away. And then, but I kind of kept this feeling inside my chest that I just couldn't really shake, and at the time I just remember feeling like this, it felt like a ball, like a physical ball in my chest that felt a little bit like that feeling when you're watching a really sad film and you don't want to cry in front of anybody because it's embarrassing, and you kind of hold it in and it hurts because you just want to cry so much but you don't want to look like an idiot. It kind of felt like that feeling, like that really tight chest sort of ball feeling, like I could cry at any moment, or like I was worried. I don't know, I just felt like this horrible feeling in my chest and I wasn't really sure why. I wasn't really struggling with anything in particular. I think I just, in my head, was thinking, oh my god, like I am a mum now and this isn't easy, and actually having a newborn baby can be a little bit shit, and I'd never really heard anybody say that to me. So I was thinking to myself, am I the only one that feels like this, or does other people feel like this? And it wasn't that I felt like I didn't love Harry. I absolutely loved him. I didn't have any problems bonding. I didn't have postnatal depression. I just knew that something didn't quite feel right. So anyway, this went on for a few weeks, and then, as I said earlier, at 7 weeks old, my son Harry was diagnosed as profoundly deaf, which obviously had a huge impact on my mental health and my partner's mental health, and we felt very, very low and down. But again, I think they are all natural feelings, and I felt a big feeling of grief. I didn't necessarily feel the level of anxiety that I got to at that point. I just felt really sad and down. So yeah, we were coming out of that stage slightly after a few more weeks, and then I think it was about when Harry was about 2 or 3 months old, I really started to feel not myself. And I just remember my friends in, I had like a WhatsApp group, my best friends, and they were, you know, saying, we need to arrange a night out soon. And I just was thinking in my head, there's absolutely no way I'm going out. And it wasn't like I felt fat, because I'd pretty much gone back to my normal size again. It wasn't that I wasn't comfortable with myself, or that I wasn't worried about leaving Harry or anything like that. I just, for some reason, I just didn't want to go out and spend time with anybody. I was struggling being a mum. I just didn't really feel naturally maternal, and I just thought everyone around me had their shit together. I really, really thought that. And I think that back then, so I'm talking like 3.5 years ago basically, back then Instagram wasn't big, and people just posted nice pictures of their babies, and there was blogs and things, but I feel like back then people weren't really very honest, and people didn't really say it how it is. I didn't really know much about anxiety anyway. I had never researched it before because it's not something I'd ever thought would happen to me. But yeah, so it kind of was spiraling out of control, to the point where I was waking up in the morning and saying to my partner Scott, I feel so anxious, I feel so on edge. I couldn't even really pinpoint why. I knew that I was worrying about keeping a baby alive, because I just felt like it was really, really hard. I just was really worried that something was going to happen to him. But at the same time, like, I couldn't really put my finger on the exact reason why I was feeling so anxious. It was just a feeling that I woke up with every morning, and I just couldn't get rid of. And it would get to the point where I felt like I physically couldn't breathe, and yeah, it was just such an awful, awful feeling. And the fact that I couldn't pinpoint it exactly and say, right, I feel anxious because I've got to do this today, or I feel anxious because of this. I really couldn't pinpoint it properly. So I found it really hard to be out of control and not be like, well, that makes me feel anxious, so I won't do it, because it wasn't like that. It was just everything, and the whole day I just had this anxious feeling. So it got to the point where I was waking up in the morning and I was saying to Scott, I was just like crying at him and saying I didn't want him to go to work, and that I felt really anxious and I didn't want to be on my own, and I couldn't take care of Harry because I just felt so awful. And obviously that really affected us, because he would get really upset because he didn't want me to feel like the way I felt. Actually, I felt like I could talk to him, which was really, really good, because I'm sure he won't mind me saying, but he has suffered quite badly with anxiety in the past and panic attacks, and he knows exactly how I was feeling. So he didn't patronise me. He didn't tell me that, you know, I need to get over myself or get over it, or I'm being stupid. He literally like talked me through it, tried to calm me down, and obviously would like just try and support me. But he said to me that I have to get out of it myself, that, you know, there isn't a magic cure for anxiety, and that it's a mindset, and I have to just, you know, get out, go and see people, distract myself, and hopefully just sort of start having a bit of a better day. So anyway, I sort of carried on like that for a little while, and I was getting really upset, but I wasn't really telling anybody else other than Scott. And then I don't really know what happened. I can't really remember this day. I don't know, my sister probably can, but I just remember one day my sister coming round and Scott being there, and I'd had a massive panic attack in the bathroom, and Scott almost called an ambulance because I just couldn't breathe. I like just could not breathe. My chest was so tight, and I think I was so tired and just so this anxiety had built up so much, and I hadn't told anybody else other than Scott, that it was just all coming out, and I just had this huge panic attack, which was so scary. It was so scary, and it was at night, luckily, and I think Harry was up in bed, and yeah, Scott nearly called an ambulance, but he managed to calm me down, and then we just sat on the sofa and he just cuddled me, and I was shaking like it was like I'd had, I don't know, it felt like some sort of seizure. Like, I was awake obviously, but it was really weird. It was just like this real horrible episode, and I'd never had a panic attack before, so I just didn't really know what to expect. So Scott called my sister and was like, look, I think you need to talk to, you know, another woman, and I'm really close to my sister anyway, so he was like, I think you need to tell her how you're feeling. And I just remember her coming around, and I just got in my bed and I wouldn't get out, and I literally like went into like a child mode, and I just literally got in bed and cried, and she came upstairs and was like, what's wrong? And I just remember telling her everything, and she was like, right, I think you need to, sorry, I've got hair in my mouth. I just remember her saying, I think you need to, you know, get some professional help, maybe like talk to somebody about how you're feeling before maybe this turns into like a depression, because I wasn't depressed. I knew I wasn't depressed, and I think that was making me feel worse, because I didn't want to go and talk to a professional about how I was feeling and for them to turn around and say, oh, you've got postnatal depression, because I knew I didn't. I really didn't have any of those sorts of feelings. I just had this horrible anxious feeling for some reason. So I called a health visitor the next day, and which was a really big and brave step for me. I found it a little bit humiliating, because I have just never been in that position before. I've always been quite confident and quite sure of myself, and I just wasn't then. It was like I'd just fallen apart. And I rang the health visitor, and she was amazing. She was so lovely. She said to me, it's fine, you know, this could be a touch of postnatal depression, it could just be, you know, prolonged baby blues, it could be hormones, or you could just be genuinely having some anxiety. And she said that I should go to see my doctor and see if they suggest anything. So I went to a GP, and they were really good as well. It was actually a man. I wanted to see a woman, but the woman that I wanted to see was off sick, and they said, you know, you can come back in a couple of weeks, or we can see a man. So I was like, okay, I'll see a man, you know, they must know about anxiety as well. And actually he was really good. He was really lovely. He reassured me. He said that it's really common to feel this way. Obviously I'd had such a massive lifestyle change, and that may have just sort of like shocked my system a little bit. And even though I couldn't put my finger on why I felt anxious, it was almost like my subconscious was worrying about all the things you have to do being a new mum and looking after a baby, and that, you know, perhaps that was like my body's way of sort of saying, right, you need to slow down, you need to look after yourself, maybe have a bit of a rest, try and get more sleep. And yeah, he was really good. He did actually give me a course of tablets, which I believe were called sertraline or sertraline, which I know is an antidepressant, and I wasn't very keen on taking them, because the first thing he said to me was that these can make you feel worse, a lot worse, before you feel better. And I just thought to myself, I don't think I could feel any worse. I really don't want to feel worse. But I did start taking them, and I don't think I felt worse, but they didn't really make me feel any better. And I sort of took them for a little while and just decided that, do you know what, I'm not going to take these. I'm just going to try and get through this myself. And obviously there's nothing wrong in taking them, and I would always say to give something like that a go if you've been recommended to, but I just decided that I didn't think they were for me, and that I was going to try it and get through this myself. The second I'd spoken to all these people about it, and even like my close friends and family, I felt a lot better actually. I still had that feeling, but I felt better about it. I just wanted to give you guys a few tips on how I sort of overcome anxiety, because I wouldn't say I'm anxiety free now, because I think anxiety is something that pretty much every single person has in them. It's just the levels of it and the way you deal with it that differs. So I want to give you tips on the way that I deal with anxiety now, or how I sort of got myself out of that funk. I like to call it a bit of a funk. So the first thing that I did, I started to worry less about things around the house, and, you know, just maybe even like my appearance a little bit. Like, I just started being a little bit more fun, and I'd concentrate on Harry, and I started to focus on getting him in a routine, because I realised that actually I do like routine. I never thought I'd be that person, but I think that the routine of him, you know, having a nap, being awake for a little while, having a feed, and you know, the bedtime routine and everything, that just made a massive difference. So once I'd established a routine with him, that really seemed to help with my anxiety. I also made sure I got a lot of fresh air. I mean, when I was at my worst with anxiety, Scott would get home from work and he'd be like, right, you know, you haven't been out all day, let's get the baby carrier on. We used to chuck Harry on our chests in the carrier, and we take a really long walk, whether it was raining, whether it was freezing cold. We just have like a really long walk. I say really long, we'd go for a walk round the pond near us, even for 15 minutes, half an hour, and we'd have a chat. Sometimes I'd have a cry, sometimes we'd just be walking along and I'd just cry, and he'd make me laugh, and I instantly would feel better just from getting that fresh air. So I'd always go and get some fresh air every single day. I also started to write things down, so I'd make lists about just about anything really, about the way I was feeling or things that made me feel good that day, or I'd make a list about things I needed to do, just lists in general. I just found that writing things down, whatever it was, just generally helped my mental health slightly. And then one of the main things that really did help me, and this was something that Scott told me to do, he was really good, bless him, this is something he told me to do. He said that when he used to feel anxious in a certain situation, so say, I don't know, he was at work on a sales floor and he suddenly had like a wave of anxiety, he would get up, you know, go to a completely different floor, go to a different room, go for a walk outside, go and get a drink. And as soon as he'd switched up his situation, he knew he sort of instantly started to feel a little bit better, and he wouldn't dwell on the fact that he felt anxious. So I really started to do that. So if I woke up in the morning with that anxious feeling, I would try not to think, oh God, I feel anxious, like this is awful, my day's going to be really bad. I would wake up and be like, right, okay, yeah, I feel anxious again. But I'm gonna go and get Harry up straight away, and we're gonna go to the supermarket and have a walk around the supermarket, or we're gonna text friends and make plans with some friends. And I started to realise that every day, if I woke up and felt like that and didn't dwell on it, then I would start not even realising that I woke up feeling okay, if that makes sense. So if I'd had a bad day as well, I found that if I sort of got to the end of the day and I went to bed and I thought, oh bloody hell, I've had such a crap day of anxiety, instead of like, again, like dwelling on the fact that I'd had a really bad day and I hadn't handled it very well, I would sort of sit there and be like, okay, that was a bad day, tomorrow's going to be better, until I realised that suddenly I was having a lot more good days than bad days. And then, you know, out of a week I'd have 2 bad days and the rest good, and then suddenly I realised I was having good weeks, and then it sort of just started to diminish. And I think I realised that I am one of those people that needs to get out of the house every day, so I'd always make sure that I went over to my sister's house, or I went to see my godparents, or I'd make plans with mum friends. And the last thing that I really did was started to be honest, and I think that was the making of me really, and I think that is the making of a lot of us other mummy YouTubers and mummy bloggers, and even mums that aren't bloggers and stuff like that, because I think being honest has really helped us all be able to open up about things like mental health and talk about that it's okay not to feel okay, and that it's okay for you to have postnatal depression. It's okay for you to not instantly love your baby. It's okay for you to want to run away sometimes, because, you know, we've all kind of felt that in that moment, and it's okay to have not brushed your teeth because you're feeding all day or something. And I just really felt like the more I was honest, the more I found that my other mum friends started to be honest, and I realised that cracks appear and everybody's not perfect, and you know, that we all do things differently and it's okay, and that just because, you know, one of my friend's baby sleeps through the night and doesn't cry very much, it doesn't mean that my baby's going to do the same, but that I might have a really, you know, good eater or something. I don't. But I just realised that being honest was really good for my mental health, and I've always gone by that now. I never sugarcoat anything. I will always tell the truth. If somebody asks me what it's like to be a mum if they are expecting, I wouldn't sit there and say this is the best thing ever in the world. Obviously it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. My son is amazing, but he can also be a total shit. He's been such a shit this week. It can be really hard, and labour was like the worst day ever for me, and no, I didn't have a positive birth experience, you know, but it's okay. I'm still walking and talking, I still have a life. I'm not just a mum, I'm Lucy, and I do everything, you know, that I want to do in my life, and I feel good about it. And yeah, so like I said, I think that everybody is an anxious person. It's just like a scale of where you are on that anxiety scale. You know, you could have a chronic anxiety where it's crippling and you really can't leave the house, or you could just be like on the lower end of the scale where things like, you know, exams and interviews stress you out. And I guess I was somewhere in the middle. I definitely didn't have chronic anxiety, and I really hope that I don't again. And I think that I've just sort of learned to manage it in my way. And I just think that you know, I was really lucky that it hasn't affected me too much. And you know what, I feel like having that anxiety that I had, which I like to refer to as postnatal anxiety because it was straight after having my son, I think that having that and going through that experience really helped me later on in my life. So my partner had a brain tumour, and I had to deal with that, and I had to deal with the fact that he had cancer, and you know, going through all that, which is totally for another video. But it really helped me to go through what I did, because I could sort of manage what happened later in life a lot easier, I think. So yeah, I just think that obviously I'm not grateful to have gone through it, but I'm sort of grateful to have learned more about myself and learned how, you know, sometimes mental health can be controlled by, you know, the choices that you make and the things that you do to make yourself feel better. I have actually got a video coming up, which I've already filmed, I'm just not sure when to publish it, about positive thinking, and positive thinking is a lot to do with mental health. So perhaps I will post that shortly after I've posted this one, because I think that might be quite helpful to some of you that are watching this that might feel a little bit negative or a little bit down. Yeah, I'm quite a positive person these days, so yeah, I filmed that video and hopefully it will help some of you. I'm going to pop a link below because Channel Mum have got the lovely Emma Kenny, who is well, I know her as like a psychologist that's on This Morning. I think that's right. But anyway, she's amazing. She's really good, and she's basically done a free mental health course along with Channel Mum, and you can do that over on their YouTube channel. There's 3 videos on there talking all about anxiety and mental health. So I will link all of those videos below, and yeah, if you've liked this video or it's been helpful to you, then give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment and subscribe, of course, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.